Have you ever seen anybody confront Rick Ross about you?
Not in person, no. Anytime I'm around, he disappears.
But is there any video of anybody hey, why are you running around with this dude's name?
The tension between Lil Meech and Rick Ross has officially reached a boiling point after reports surfaced of a $120 million scam tied to the BMF name. According to insiders, Lil Meech feels completely betrayed and has now declared war on Ross, vowing to expose everything and reclaim the empire his father built. What began as whispers of shady business deals has spiraled into a full-blown conflict, one that's now spilling into dangerous territory. In a fiery live stream, Lil Meech didn't hold back, accusing Ross of manipulating contracts and stealing millions in profits from films, merchandise, and licensing rights.
50, who own your masters? Who own your masters? I buy your masters. You better shut up. I will buy your masters.
You stole from my family's legacy, he shouted, adding that Ross's so-called boss persona was built on lies. His words carried a darker edge when he warned, "This ain't just business anymore, it's war." Sources say deadly threats have already started circulating, with street affiliates allegedly picking sides as the BMF brand becomes a battleground. While Ross has stayed quiet publicly, those close to him insist he's unfazed and prepared to defend his name at all costs. Fans online are split, some backing Lil Meech for standing up for his father's legacy, others accusing him of letting emotions drive him into dangerous waters. With $120 million on the line and threats turning violent, the BMF legacy is at risk of collapsing into chaos. And now hip-hop is bracing for a war that may not stay confined to music or business. Rick Ross just played Big Meech like a pawn in what's being described as a $120 million hustle, and now 50 Cent is out here clowning the entire situation.
Tickets right now.
That guy, I don't think there's a bad guy.
No, yes it is. That Vlad, let's talk about it.
I think Meech is the one that made a mistake.
No.
No? You think 50?
No.
Lil Meech.
No.
Who am I forgetting now?
Rick Ross knew perfectly damn well what he was doing and what that would lead to. And if he was a real friend to Meech,
feel bad for Lil Meech. I don't feel bad for no grown man on this planet. Like, I'm a grown man. Why the f I gotta feel bad for another grown man? Like, you a grown man too. What you asking for my sympathy for? You be alright.
The wild part is that everyone saw this scam unfolding long before it happened. Everyone except Meech himself. Ross dangled movie deals, promised major projects, and filled the air with flashy talk, only to leave Big Meech and his son looking stranded while he continued to live comfortably in his mansions. If you've been listening to the chatter on the streets, you already know how this began. After Big Meech walked out of prison in October, expectations were sky high for a massive comeback. Fans thought the legend was ready to reclaim his spot, and then suddenly, Rick Ross appeared, boasting about billion-dollar energy. He promised a $120 million film, talked about global projects, and painted a picture of huge deals coming down the pipeline. On paper, it looked like Meech was finally about to cash in on the empire his name built, but when the smoke cleared, nothing materialized. Ross delivered zero, using Meech's name as a prop to flex against his longtime rival, 50 Cent. Meanwhile, the streets kept watching closely because they knew who was putting in the actual work. 50 was the one funding the BMF series, paying for Lil Meech's acting classes, and opening real doors that Ross could never deliver on. That investment from 50 Cent gave Lil Meech a real career. Meanwhile, Rick Ross offered nothing but empty hype and a PR boost. Despite the contrast, Meech leaned closer to Ross, ignoring the one person who had consistently kept him afloat. That decision didn't sit well with many insiders.
Ricky Rose, the time has come. Meech on. February 13th, get your tickets right now. It's going down. We know Florida gonna be there. Miami gonna be there.
The legend himself gonna be in the building, making history. Meet who else coming?
The whole nation. Detroit, St. Louis, California, everybody. Atlanta, Georgia, ATL, stand up.
Woo. We gonna make history. Get your
Tony Yayo even said it directly. 50 had been riding with Lil Meech from the very beginning. No sugarcoating. Now word on the street is that Meech is feeling the pressure. His frustrations are mounting, his pockets are looking strained, and he's realizing that Ross linked with him for one reason only, to keep poking at 50 Cent. It wasn't loyalty or respect, it was strictly about fueling an old rivalry. The optics now have Meech looking like a pawn, not the king he envisioned. Instead of leveling up, he's been reduced to standing in the middle of somebody else's feud. That's when 50 decided to stop holding back. He reached into his troll playbook and threw out a jab, saying Ross told Lil Meech to hand over his father's address so he could send Wingstop wings. That joke wasn't just comedy, it was a coded message. 50 was essentially telling the world that Ross wasn't feeding Meech anything substantial, only scraps. But the humor stung deeper because it carried truth. Then things escalated further. 50 dropped revelations about Lil Meech's personal struggles, claiming he had personally sent him to rehab. He described how Meech allegedly showed up to set intoxicated, even throwing up during a weapons test, unable to maintain control. The story got darker with allegations about whippets found in his truck, painting a picture of someone spiraling out while his supposed allies watched from a distance. 50 laughed at his own confusion, admitting he had to Google what whippets even were. The way he framed it, he was the grown man in the room, stepping in to keep Lil Meech on track while his father and Ross encouraged the same reckless habits that were dragging him down.
Guy, I don't think there's a bad guy.
No, yes it is. That Vlad, let's talk about it.
I think Meech is the one that made a mistake.
No,
No? You think 50?
no,
Lil Meech.
no.
Who am I forgetting now?
Rick Ross knew perfectly damn well what he was doing and what that would lead to. And if he was a real friend to Meech, unless he was looking to get 50 out the way, he would have dealt with Meech in the shadows, because he knows me and this dude who is gonna react if he sees me dealing with this dude that he has business with. And there was a lot of business left to be done, right? Rick Ross, bro, could have done whatever he was gonna do in the shadows if he really honored and respected Meech. Trust me, Meech wished none of this was going on.
50 positioned himself as the protector, while Big Meech and Ross looked careless. But despite that, Lil Meech still chose to side with Ross, appearing in clubs and parties with him like nothing had happened. That move became a turning point, and soon the entire BMF legacy started getting roasted. People began saying the so-called bond between Ross and Meech collapsed quicker than anyone expected. Then Michael Rainey Jr., best known as 50's power star, added fuel to the fire. He came out bold, declaring that he didn't feel sorry for either Big Meech or Lil Meech, because grown men should have seen this betrayal coming. His words hit hard, and the internet amplified it instantly. That clip went viral, spreading across platforms within hours, and 50 wasted no time stamping his approval. He doubled down, backing Rainey's perspective and reinforcing the image that the Meech camp was looking weak. The narrative grew even stronger when old stories resurfaced about Ross abandoning his own crew in Canada, allegedly leaving his boys to get jumped while he slipped away. Later, he claimed it was just a test of loyalty and strength, but many saw it as cold and calculated.
I do want to do a BMF film because you've been entertained by a lackluster, small budget series. Now it's time to do a big budget film. Which director? Shout out to my homie F. Gary Gray, Antoine Foucault, what's up? Tarantino. It's a lot of legends. This is gonna be big, I can feel it. I'm just talking.
But that's Ross's MO, and people have been calling it out for years. Many say he's been moving grimy since the start. Even Whack 100 jumped in, blasting Ross as the real villain behind the scenes. Wack claimed Ross was never a genuine friend to Big Meech. He only used him as a pawn to throw shade at 50, because if Ross had truly wanted to help, he would have handled business in silence, kept the deals private, and actually built something real with Meech. Instead, Ross broadcasted every move, made it about his own shine, and centered himself in the spotlight. That right there told the whole story. Ross wasn't in it for Meech, he was in it for Ross. He knew the play before it even started, gassing Meech up with talk of stacked bread and empire building while parading him around for clout. Behind the scenes, he was slowly turning Meech against the one man who had really kept his name alive, 50 Cent. And when the dust finally settled, all that talk was exposed as smoke and mirrors. Ross went silent, left Meech dangling, and let the hype fade away. Suddenly it was clear. Ross only pushes whatever lines his own pockets. And now, Meech doesn't appear to be part of that plan anymore. Even the cancellation of Meech's Welcome Home benefit had people pointing fingers at 50, but the deeper truth was, Ross didn't want Meech staging a real comeback. He wanted him sidelined, just sitting quiet while Ross positioned himself as the hero on social media. That's betrayal at its core. What should have been a moment to reclaim legacy instead turned into proof that Meech traded loyalty for clout chasing. And when Meech tried to fire back, labeling 50 an internet gangster and claiming he only trolls from behind a phone, the defense fell flat. Nobody bought into it. The streets called it for what it was, damage control. By then, the clowning had already stuck. And once that narrative catches, it's almost impossible to reverse. Looking closer at Ross's history shows the same repeating pattern. The BMF track had Meech believing Ross was riding for him like family. But what if that was always the setup? What if Ross simply wanted to wear the image of Big Meech in the eyes of the culture? It fits perfectly. Ross built his entire rap brand off names and legacies that weren't his. And that's not speculation, it's documented. His entire persona came from the real Rick Ross, a heavyweight who was locked up while the rapper ran with his identity.
You know, but when you take Lil Meech and you put him in acting school, you know, you take him from Detroit. I remember him rapping when he was rapping and nobody was helping him from what I seen. Cause I remember when Lil Meech was rapping. Nobody helped him, and then 50 put him in acting school, kept it on the low, and he made all this money.
When the real Ross touched ground again, he called him out publicly, even attempted to sue him over it. But the industry had already moved forward. And this wasn't just a one-off with the real Rick Ross. History shows Ross has recycled the legacies of multiple street figures to build his own persona. Take Larry Hoover, for example. For years, Ross has casually dropped his name in songs, using it like currency to boost his credibility in the streets. But while Hoover sat behind bars, Ross was out here turning his legacy into a punchline for profit. Fans and insiders called it out repeatedly. Ross never actually put in work to advocate for Hoover's release or support his family. He just rode the name for clout, lining his own pockets with the association. The same strategy he pulled with Big Meech, get close enough to use the aura, but never deep enough to give back. It's a cycle that keeps repeating. Ross positions himself as the voice of the streets, but when the lights turn off, there's nothing behind it but branding. Meanwhile, the people whose names he borrows end up stuck in the shadows, watching their legacies manipulated for entertainment. And that's why 50 has kept hammering the point. Ross doesn't build, he exploits. And Meech walks straight into the trap. Now, while Ross was out here stacking borrowed names, 50 Cent was stacking receipts. Every move Meech made with Ross, 50 flipped into proof that he was the only one truly keeping the BMF brand alive. The TV show, the acting gigs for Lil Meech, the spotlight that introduced BMF to a whole new generation, none of that came from Ross. That was 50's investment, and he never let anyone forget it. So when Meech tried painting 50 as some internet gangster, the narrative didn't stick. Too many people had already seen the receipts. They remembered 50 fronting the cash for Lil Meech's acting school. They remembered him putting his own reputation on the line to turn a street legend into a mainstream story. Against that backdrop, Ross's big promises looked empty, and Meech's excuses sounded hollow. And the more 50 pressed the issue, the more the streets leaned his way. To them, the equation was simple. One man delivered, the other just talked. And in hip-hop, actions always weigh heavier than words. Ross repeated the same move with Larry Hoover, using the man's name in lyrics while he sat behind bars, stacking clout and dollars off another man's legacy. Same exact play. And when you really line it all up, it paints a clear picture. Ross has been eating off other people's names for years, recycling their struggles into his own branding. Now, allegedly, he's running the same game on Big Meech. Truth be told, figures like that can never be fully trusted. No shock that 50 Cent has been saying from the very start that he never respected Ross as a man. And the online community hasn't been quiet either. Comments are flooding in, some calling Ross a fraud, others saying he left Meech high and dry with no safety net. So the real questions remain. Was this just part of the game, or did Big Meech really get played for clout? Was his loyalty misplaced, or did he walk into a setup that was clear from the beginning? Drop your thoughts below in the comments, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to check out the next video on your screen. This story is only getting deeper.